And his concerns were many. One of his main concerns was money. He was always thinking about money, that he was worried constantly that Apple Records was ripping him off.
Una de sus mayores preocupaciones era el dinero y que Apple Records estaba continuamente timándole. Era una de las sensaciones que él tenía.
When Yoko handled his business, and when she would go to the Apple meetings to divide up the money, really, to negotiate, he would write things in his diaries like Yoko off to battle the Apple dwarfs.
Y Yoko Ono era la que iba a las reuniones en relación a todo lo relacionado con Apple Records, y siempre que se iba, John Lennon escribía compulsivamente: Yoko se ha ido a pelear con Apple por temas de dinero, claro.
It's probably not surprising, or maybe somewhat surprising, but one of the things that John thought about virtually every single day was Paul McCartney.
Y también otra de las personas en las que él pensaba continuamente era Paul McCartney.
One of his concerns was who was richer, John or Paul.
Una de sus preocupaciones era quién es más rico, yo o Paul.
When Yoko sold her cow, her Holstein cow, for I forget how much money it was. I think it was like $400,000, and this made headlines. He would declare in his diaries this was a great victory over McCartney.
Sí, cuando
when Yoko sold her cow for, I think it was $400,000, and this made headlines in the newspapers, John declared in his diaries that this was a great victory over McCartney. Sold her cow. She had cows. Cow.
Está diciendo que yo tenía vacas, y digo, ¿cómo que vacas? Digo, me estoy perdiendo algo. Bueno, que sacó $400,000, y entonces que eso para él era una gran victoria, claro, en el tema económico.
When Paul was in town, John felt that there was a psychic connection between him and Paul, and whenever Paul was in town, he would write, I hear McCartney's music playing in my head, he must be in town.
Sí, él decía que cuando sabía que Paul McCartney estaba en la ciudad, estaba en Nueva York, era como que sentía una especie de conexión psíquica en relación a él, era como que presentía que estaba ahí.
His jealousy against McCartney was insane and compulsive. One of John's happiest moments in 1980, early 1980, was when McCartney was arrested in Japan for marijuana. John was thrilled.
Sí, nos cuenta acerca de los celos que dice Bob que John tenía de Paul, y que una de sus mayores alegrías fue cuando, a comienzos de los años 80, en los 80 comienzos, arrestaron a Paul McCartney en Japón por el tema de la droga y demás, y que eso para él fue una alegría.
The thing was that when John had chosen to go into seclusion and to drop out of the record business after Sean was born, his son Sean, in 1975, McCartney stayed active, and Paul was putting out record after record, hit after hit, and it drove John bananas. That was his word, crackers rather. It drove John crackers, and he was frustrated that while he was doing nothing, Paul was constantly in the limelight, and that just fueled his jealousy.
Cuando en 1975 John decide recluirse en el Dakota y cuidar de Sean, él es perfectamente consciente de que Paul McCartney sigue en activo, sigue escribiendo canciones y sigue escribiendo hit tras hit, y eso le volvía loco, o sea, le hacía sentir pues muchos celos, mucho celos.
And of course, when Sean was born, John was happy beyond words after Sean was born, and he obviously cared about Sean deeply, and he thought about Sean all the time, and he was always writing about Sean and Sean's moods, and what Sean was eating and what Sean was doing, and if Sean had a cold. This was all in the diaries, day by day.
En el momento en el que nace Sean, de repente el protagonismo de esos diarios es para Sean. Todo lo que hace y todo lo que dice lo va apuntando, y el protagonismo es para el niño ahora.
And of course, for those of you who read the book, you know that there's a lot in there about the occult, about magic, about numerology, about tarot, and he wrote about this. Yoko got him into the occult, and he became obsessed with it. He had a full-time tarot card reader, and this is the kind of thing he'd write about. He'd meet with the tarot card reader, and he'd read the cards about whatever, about business or McCartney or Sean or something, and he filled his diaries with whatever the tarot card reader said. He went through this period, I think it was 1978, 1979. The price of gold was very volatile, and he was having Charlie Swan, the tarot card reader, read on gold futures. He was trying to make money on gold futures. So again, this is what he wrote about.
Básicamente nos dice que, aquellos que hayáis leído ya el libro, pues habéis leído acerca de la obsesión que empezó a tener John Lennon sobre el tema del tarot, la numerología y todo lo místico, y cómo cualquier movimiento que daba o que quería dar, primero lo consultaba con los tiradores de tarot que tenía trabajando para él.
He wrote about his dreams. He had taught himself a technique called lucid dreaming, where you can literally program dreams. So he would program dreams, and then he'd write about the dreams. And there were years, 1978, 1979, when he was doing this. There was more in the diaries about what John was dreaming than what was happening in his waking life.
Alrededor del 78 y el 79, el protagonismo de los diarios básicamente era lo que él soñaba, porque él mismo creó como una especie de programa mental mediante el cual podía programar sus sueños. Y entonces el protagonismo de los diarios era sobre todo los sueños que él se autoprogramaba.
He kept track of the food he ate. He would write, every meal. Sometimes he would go into detail about the recipe, who cooked it, the restaurant. And he was like on a trip to Japan. Again, I think it was 1978 that they went out to a different restaurant every night, and he would do like a little food review every night. And I think that what I've just said for the past few minutes, that pretty much covers the main topics of what he wrote about. Oh, and of course, he was always writing about his relationship with Yoko, up, down, good day, bad day, that kind of thing.
Dos temas más que están en ese diario son la comida, la cocina, apuntaba a los ingredientes, apuntaba a las recetas, cualquier detalle relacionado con la comida que comía. En un viaje a Japón también tomó nota de todo lo que comía, de los ingredientes, y luego, por supuesto, de su relación con Yoko, evidentemente.
And, okay, next question, please. Por favor.
¿Piensas que si John no hubiera sido asesinado, los Beatles se hubieran reunido?
According to what John wrote, between 1975 and 1980, the idea of a Beatles reunion absolutely repulsed him.
What? No.
No. But, who knows? If John had lived, these groups, they reunite, like the Eagles or something like that. They reunite because they need money, and, just who knows what would have happened had John lived. But, it was just very clear between 1975 and 1980 that John wanted to move forward with his life, that he'd done the whole rock star thing, and now he wanted to be a family man. He wanted a real family, and it just became, despite what he might have told people like Jack Douglas, his record producer, that it was just explicitly clear that the last thing that John wanted was a Beatles reunion. He did not want to go back to being a teenager. You know, he was just ready for a full adult family life.
Nada, como queda claro en los diarios, entre el 75 y el 80, lo que se deduce de lo que él escribía es que en ningún momento consideraba volver con los Beatles, porque él lo que quería era ser un hombre de familia y dar un paso hacia adelante, pero en otro sentido. Y cuando, en conversaciones con Jack Douglas, que es el productor de Double Fantasy, también se deduce eso, que él quería hacer su disco, pero en ningún momento consideraba posible una reunión con sus antiguos compañeros.
Cuando tuvo oportunidad de tener el libro original, no consiguió hacer una copia, tanto o fotocopia o plan fotografía del libro. Segundo, si después tuvo problemas con los editores, con los abogados, etcétera, etcétera. Tercero, ¿qué opina Yoko Ono?
He's asking me if you had a chance to photocopy the original diaries, and if you had any copyright problems with that, and what does Yoko think about it?
¿Por qué no lo incluyó si se la copia? Si tiene fotocopia.
Si tiene copia de los diarios.
Si tiene copia, ¿por qué no lo incluyó en el...?
Yeah, if you do have a copy of the diaries, why didn't you include it?
I do not have a copy of the diaries.
No tiene copia.
In the first chapter of the book, not the new introduction for the new edition, but I tell the story of what happened with the diaries. And Fred Seaman gave them to me, I transcribed them, I worked with them day in, day out for a few months. Transcribing the diaries was very difficult. John had a really peculiar handwriting. He wrote a lot of things in code, and it was just like the kind of thing where I had to transcribe it like almost letter by letter, and I figured out how to fill in like the missing words through context, and it was a very difficult process. And after going through this, what happened was I was out of town, and Fred Seaman came into my apartment, and he took everything I'd been working on, and he told me I was off the project. For 2 weeks, I was in a state of shock.
Bueno, tal como cuenta en el libro, explica la historia, todo lo que sucedió con esos diarios. Bob se fue de vacaciones después de que Fred Seaman le encargase todo el trabajo, en el que estuvo trabajando durante meses, día y noche. Fred le sugiere que se vaya de vacaciones para descansar un poco, y durante esas vacaciones en Jamaica, Fred Seaman accede al apartamento de Bob y le roba todo el material en el que había estado trabajando, y eso hizo que estuviese 2 semanas en estado de shock.
I didn't know what to do. I couldn't believe that this happened, that I had devoted the past year of my life to doing this project. What started happening after about 2 weeks is I'd wake up in the morning and little fragments of the diaries, of John's diaries, would be going through my head.
Después de esas 2 semanas, Bob reacciona y se da cuenta de que le empiezan a venir como recuerdos de aquello en lo que había estado trabajando durante el último año.
So this has been going on for a couple of weeks now, and at a certain point I realized these fragments that were going through my head, I should start writing them down, and I started writing them down.
Y se da cuenta de que esos fragmentos que le están viniendo a la mente, pues que él es capaz de volver a ponerlos en papel y volver a escribirlos.
The more I wrote down, the more I remembered.
Cuanto más escribía, más recordaba.
The diaries were so strange and so vivid and such a life-changing thing for me that, after going at this for a few months, I realized, that I had major portions of the diaries memorized, and I was able to recreate them from memory.
Después de haber estado trabajando en estos recuerdos, poniéndolos en papel, se daba cuenta de que realmente había casi memorizado extractos originales de los diarios. Y bueno, eso es lo que le animaba a seguir y seguir.
The whole thing with the murder, the diaries, the stealing of the diaries, I realized that I had a book. At the time, I thought of it as like a rock and roll Watergate.
Sí, pues con el tema del asesinato, con el tema de escribir los diarios, con el tema de que se los hayan robado, se daba cuenta de que tenía material suficiente para escribir un libro.
I started presenting the manuscript to publishers, and what they told me was they couldn't publish it because, they didn't believe that these diaries existed, and they didn't believe that I had the diaries, that they would tell me things like, the story sounds true, but you can't prove anything.
Empezó a ir a las editoriales y lo que le decían era que realmente no había ninguna prueba de que esos diarios existieran realmente y que pues que estaba muy bien lo que les presentaba, pero que realmente no tenían base para creer que eso venía de unos diarios originales.
And the other problem was that I couldn't quote from the diaries for copyright reasons. That somebody asked about copyright, and that's correct. I could not quote from the diaries for copyright reasons.
Claro, realmente no puede citar nada literal desde los diarios por razones de copyright.
This went on for 18 years, from 1981 through 2000, 1982 to 2000, and the book got rejected by basically every publisher, every magazine.
Durante 18 años el libro, la propuesta fue rechazada por todas las editoriales.
During that time, I met with John Lennon, who is the publisher of Rolling Stone magazine.
Acaba conociendo a John Lennon, de Rolling Stone.
He told me that to save my karma, that's his exact words, I should meet with Yoko and tell her what happened.
Para John Lennon lo que le dice es, para tú salvar tu karma, lo que tienes que hacer es irte y contarle a Yoko Ono lo que te ha pasado, o lo que te pasó.
I met with Yoko.
Quedó con Yoko.
She put me on her payroll.
Yoko le puso en nómina.
I would go to the Dakota every day, and I would meet with Yoko and her boyfriend at the time, Sam Habitoy.
Entonces Bob empezó a ir al Dakota día tras día y allí pues veía a Yoko y veía a la actual pareja, la pareja que tenía Yoko entonces.
I had been keeping diaries of my own since 1977. This is 1982 now. Yoko asked if she could read my diaries.
Entonces Bob por entonces guardaba sus diarios suyos personales y lo que hace Yoko es decirle que si le da permiso para leer esos diarios personales de Bob.
She was Yoko Ono. I went to her with an open heart. I wanted to help. I gave her my diaries, and we would sit there every day for a couple of weeks, and we'd go over my diaries. She claimed that she didn't know that John was keeping diaries. That wasn't true, but she claimed that, and she used the information in my diaries to get John's diaries back from Fred Seaman, and then she cut me off from her payroll, and she kept my diaries for 18 years.
Básicamente lo que sucede es que durante 2 semanas se ven diariamente y Yoko Ono lee pues, los diarios personales de Bob y lo que hace es despedirle y retener esos diarios durante 18 years, durante 18 años, y entonces usó ese material para recuperar los diarios originales que además Yoko Ono negaba saber de su existencia.
There was nothing I could do about it. During that time, over those 18 years, I would forget about the book about John's diaries, sometimes for years at a time, but the story haunted me. It was just such an amazing story. It was the story, John Lennon and the Beatles is the story of my generation. And, even after I put it aside for a year or two sometimes, the story would come back and I'd start working on it. And what happened over those 18 years is that in other people's books, in magazine articles, eventually on the internet, when the internet finally started happening, that was a big breakthrough that I would see in all these different places, little fragments of things that were in John's diaries.
Cuando esto le sucede, Bob decide olvidarse del tema, olvidarse de los diarios, olvidarse de todo esto, pero se da cuenta de que realmente quedó hechizado por todo aquello que vivió y por todo aquello que leyó en los diarios. Entonces lo que sucede es que con la venida de Internet se da cuenta de que puede publicar a su manera pequeños fragmentos de aquello que todavía continuaba hechizando.
I solved the copyright problem. Everything that is in Nowhere Man is something I saw somewhere else. A little fragment here, a word or two there. I somehow, over an 18-year period, I put this together in a way that communicates John's voice and John's energy without actually copying anything from the diaries. That as I was recreating the diaries the first time around, Diego had asked me about this as we were coming over here. How did that feel? As I was recreating the diaries, it felt like John's energy was flowing through me. It was almost like an incantation. And I somehow infused, without quoting from the diaries, I somehow infused Nowhere Man with John's spirit and John's energy. And that's why the book has been such a phenomenon for so long, that people read it and they feel the energy and they recognize the energy. And in 2000, some publishers, Soft Skull Press, a little underground publisher in New York, they decided that they wanted to publish it, and they published it. And after 18 years of being rejected, the book became a best-selling phenomenon in many languages, and it changed my life.
Según veníamos hacia el Café Comercial, yo le preguntaba que qué se sentía cuando has pasado tantísimo tiempo leyendo las palabras literales que John Lennon había escrito en su diario. Él decía que, después de tanto tiempo trabajando de esa manera, conseguía sentir la energía, esa energía de John Lennon fluyendo a través de él, y que de alguna manera él lo que consiguió fue, sin copiar literalmente de los diarios, recrear un poco esa energía a través de diferentes técnicas y demás. Entonces es algo que se ha dado cuenta que fue lo que al final consiguió que una editorial le prestara atención y después de 18 años pudiese publicar el libro, y que casi todos tenéis ya con vosotros.
And somebody asked, what did Yoko think of the book when the book first came out? She had her spokesman, Elliot Mintz, denounce it as lies. In 2002, when she decided to sue Fred Seaman for copyright violation having to do with some photos that he took that went into his own book or something like that, she subpoenaed me to testify in court for the trial. My testimony under oath is essentially chapter 1 from Nowhere Man.
Sí, Elliot Mintz, el portavoz de Yoko Ono, perdonadme porque se me ha olvidado todo lo que me acaba de decir.
Oh, sure. See, repeat it.
Same thing about short trips.
What
would you have to say? I forgot.
Okay. In 2002, when Yoko chose to sue Fred Seaman.
En el 2002, Yoko decide llevar a juicio a Fred Seaman por unas fotografías que había cogido sin permiso para su propio libro.
She subpoenaed me to testify on on her behalf at the trial.
Y pidió a Bob que testificara en contra de Fred Simmons.
After denouncing the book as lies when it first came out, 2 years later, she had me swear under oath that the book was true.
2 años después de decir que el libro de Bob era una sarta de mentiras, pues aún así le pide que testifique a su favor en contra de Fred Simmons.
Does she like the book? I don't think she likes the book, but I think she recognizes it as the truth. I think she understands at this point that, you know, I meant her no harm, that, you know, all I wanted to do was, you know, just like the song said, just, you know, give us the truth. And that is what I tried to do in that book with all my heart and soul, was to tell the truth as John saw it.
Él piensa que, bueno, aunque Yoko Ono pues, le dijo lo que pensaba de su libro, en el fondo sí que piensa, sí que considera que reconoce en Bob la intención de decir la verdad, como dice la canción de John Lennon, ¿no? Y esa realmente es la intención de Bob, a pesar de todo lo ocurrido.
Next question. Yes.
De la lectura de los diarios se puede reconocer que John abandonó la música en estos 4 años, del 75 al 80. Lo digo porque todo el mundo lo dice. Pero yo tengo un manuscrito de John Lennon en el cual pide, es la lista de la compra, le dice a Fred que vaya a la tienda de Manis a comprar un Gizmatron, que es un aparato para tocar la guitarra. Entonces hay una contradicción entre lo que yo veo, porque lo tengo, y lo que se estila, de que abandonó la música totalmente. Y después otra cosa, Rosaura, quería saber si sabe de la existencia de Rosaura, la cual tuvo la fortuna de, mientras veía unas patatas, también estaba tocando la guitarra atrás y le preguntaba cosas. Entonces hay algo que no entiendo, porque siempre dicen que abandonó la música, yo creo que no.
Okay, so dates from 1975 to 1980, he stopped playing music, right? So he says that he has a manuscript from John Lennon where he asks somebody to go to the shop and buy something to play the guitar. And also Rosaura, who is a Spanish housekeeper who works in Dakota, it seems that one day when she was cooking, she could hear or see John playing the guitar in front of her. So it is like there was a contradiction between what Lennon says that he stopped playing music, and then all this stories about him playing the guitar.
He didn't really stop playing music. He stopped recording music for a corporation.
No, realmente no dejó de componer música y demás, sino que él seguía tocando.
He wrote songs, his diaries were full of song lyrics and ideas for songs that he got the idea for watching the Wheels. I think it was in 1977 that he had dinner with Fred Siemens, his uncle Norman Seaman, who used to produce Yoko's performance art pieces at Carnegie Hall, and they had stayed friends. And he had dinner with Norman Seaman, and Norman Seaman told him that he was crazy because he wasn't doing, you know, everything possible to stay in the limelight and to make money and all that.
En sus diarios él anota extractos de letras, ideas para canciones como en Watching the Wheels, y Norman Seaman, Fred's uncle, sí, el tío de Fred, le decía mismamente a John Lennon que estaba loco por no hacer música, siendo quien era, por haber decidido dejar de hacer música.
So he comes home from the dinner and he writes in his diary, a song is born, people say I'm crazy.
Entonces lo que hace es, después de volver de aquella cena, escribe en su diario, la gente piensa que estoy loco, ¿no? Que es la letra de Watching the Wheels, ¿no? El comienzo de Watching the Wheels.
And, you know, that's one example. He wrote lyrics to a song about Tennessee Williams. It's called Tennessee. There were just little fragments of lyrics all over the place.
Sí, él seguía escribiendo pequeños fragmentos de letra en sus diarios.
And he wasn't happy with it. You know, he considered it paint by numbers.
Ya, él pensaba que él estaba siendo pagado por números.
But, you know, though he was writing music he felt that he lost his muse, and it was a conscious plan to drop out of the music business for 5 years after Sean was born.
Él sentía que había perdido su musa, que las había perdido, entonces entraba dentro de su plan parar y dedicarse a su hijo Sean durante 5 años.
When the 5 years passed, it was a conscious decision once again that he wanted to get back to writing music, and he wanted to recapture his muse. And to recapture your mood, to recapture your muse for any creative project, especially after stopping almost cold for an extended period of time, is a very difficult, painful thing. And when he sailed to Bermuda from Rhode Island, that was part of what he called getting centered. When he took a silent vow, that was all getting centered, trying to recapture his muse. And finally, when he got to Bermuda, he was able to become inspired again. And the idea for Double Fantasy came to him whole, that he envisioned an album of his songs and Yoko's songs, a song by him, a song by Yoko, a back and forth dialogue, and he successfully recaptured the muse in Bermuda, and he put out the album. But he never completely stopped writing music. He just wasn't happy with the music that he was writing.
Básicamente, bueno, conocéis todos